Okay, everyone, let's get going. Welcome back. Thank you to everyone for joining. And I want to thank, once again, Myrna for sponsoring in honor of her mother's yurtzeit. Again, basically a month of shiurim. Very special and really appreciate it. And we are now coming to the end of this Torah, really. It's possible that we'll finish it today. We'll see how it goes. Just that I want to give a forewarning that as we get to the end now, there's some things that are very dense, meaning that there's sometimes just a few words are encompassing everything that we learned up until now. And so there's a lot of explanation that theoretically may be needed in order to get through this part, little by little. So it may be that we'll make it through today, and it may be that we'll need one more time before we get, and hopefully we'll have a little bit of a discussion the week after on some of the deeper Torah from Reb Nosson, explaining this Torah of Rabbi Nachman. For the moment, let's just try to remember the main steps of this Torah so we can go forward. The main steps are that we have to, Rabbi Nachman is telling us that the Torah started off, Yemei Chanukah, Yemei Haida. The days of Chanukah are days of gratitude. And he told us over there that the engaging in thankfulness and gratitude will bring us to a place of das, consciousness, connective with Hashem. And just the avodah of thanking, of being thankful to Hashem, connects us to Hashem. It connects us and puts Hashem into our consciousness. And when we think about Hashem, then we experience Him in a different way. So then he said that when we go through a tzara also, when we go through a tribulation, a difficulty, a challenge, then when we come out, we find ourselves in a state of thankfulness because we made it through. We got out. Baruch Hashem. And here we are. And so that's another aspect of Hoida, is coming out of a tzara brings us to a place of thankfulness, which then once again will connect us to Hashem. Thankfulness connects us to Hashem in our conscious existence. Not behind the scenes, our conscious existence. Right? And then we said that there's even a further level to this, and that is where we're able to understand, even within the tzara, even within the pain, even within the tribulation, that Hashem is there with me, and I can be thankful for in there also. And we saw this through the understanding of a lady giving birth, how she's in a tremendous tzara, and there's a lot of pain, and it's a huge difficulty. But nonetheless, she knows what's happening, so she goes through it and she does it, and she's thankful to be having a baby. And then we said, when someone exists in this level, they're able to now have truth revealed to them. Hashem reveals an aspect of truth to them, and through this aspect of truth that's revealed to them, it changes them in a way that it affects our ability to speak. It affects our speech. Our dibur becomes shalom, becomes complete. And we explained a lot about what this means and the three paths of speech, three paths of truth, illuminating within our four aspects of speech. And we spoke about this last time. And then we said that the ultimate perfection of our speech and of our existence within revealed truth happens on Shabbos. On Shabbos, we live with Hashem in a way where we see Hashem, we feel Hashem and the oneness of Hashem, and that through and we also have a different way of speaking on Shabbos. We have to speak in a different way. Halacha tells us, right? I just said the word halacha. If you remember the very beginning, another ingredient to this whole thing is halacha. Right? Doing things in our lives with Hashem in mind. Right? Walking through the world hand in hand with Hashem. This is what halacha means, right? And then we said, so after Shabbos, we have to take Shabbos and make it holy. make it amazing. And then we have to use Shabbos as a way to lift up the weekdays, to pull our weekdays up to the level of Shabbos, which is a place of consciousness of Hashem, and it's a place where we are a Ben HaMelech or a Bat HaMelech, right? Where we are the children of Hashem, not the servants of Hashem, right? We try to change the week from being the time where the Malach Matat is the ruler, and he's called an Eved, and we live an existence of being an Eved, of Avdus, of toil, and Be'itzavo and Techelena. In sadness, we will make our parnasa, right? That's the weekday existence. Rabbi Nachman says no. We have to make Shabbos amazing, and then use Shabbos as a way to lift our whole weekday up, right? This is a very, very important advice that we all need so strongly. How can we live without Shabbos? How could it be? How can we live without an amazing Shabbos, right? We have to have it. And then when we do that, we're then able to draw the aspect of drawing Shabbos into the weekday is the same as drawing the oneness of Hashem into the multiplicity of this world. Right? Shabbos is connected to what's called the Achdus HaPashit that we talked about last week, the absolute oneness of Hashem, because Shabbos is when we connect on a higher level. It's when we stop doing all of our actions. When we stop saying that the world needs me to do 1,000 things, and we don't do it, and we say, no, today I acknowledge that Hashem does everything. That's the recognizing the oneness of Hashem. And through that, I'm able to pull that concept of Achdus HaPashut, of the oneness of Hashem, into the world. And that really is drawing Olam Haba into this world. Drawing the Sha'ashua Olam Haba, the playful delight, as we called it, of Olam Haba into this world. And so now, and we gave the example last time, by the way, the story from the Gemara of Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol and the Chachamim, and how the machlokes was between Rabbi Eliezer and all of the other Rabbanim, and how the halacha in the end, even though Rabbi Eliezer was really right, and he did 4 miraculous events to show that he was right, but the majority said, no, we say like this, and the halacha goes like the majority, and that's what Hashem wants. Hashem wants that many different deos, many different consciousnesses, many different mindsets of Yidden come together to agree on one thing. That is also an aspect of the oneness of Hashem. When different wills come together to agree on one foundational point. Reb Nosson explains that this has to do with the fact that all the sons of Yaakov came together and said Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, all in one voice, right? It's everyone coming together with emunah. That is the unification that happens through the story over there. So that brings us to the place we're now at, which is in the BRI Sefer. It is on page 152, and we're now gonna begin the explanations of the end of this Torah. Rabbi Nachman says, "V'zeh bechinas Chanukah," and this is the aspect of Chanukah. Ki yemei Chanukah heim yemei hoidah, because the days of Chanukah are days of gratitude, thankfulness. Shu bechinas sha'ashu Olam Haba, which is this aspect of the delight of Olam Haba that we talked about so many times. Bechinas halachos, which is this aspect of halachos, of living with Hashem and seeing Hashem after we come out of a tzara and Hashem saves us. And through this we get to this aspect of perfection of speech, al yedei hiskal hemesh, through the truth being revealed to us. This is what happens when we engage in gratitude and thankfulness, when we engage in halacha, when we engage in connecting our consciousness to Hashem. So this is Chanukah. So interestingly, just simply speaking, people don't say this, but in this Torah, but simply speaking, Chanukah was this aspect of halacha, right? We explained in Siv Beis and Gimel in this Torah that when we go through a tzara and then we come through that sorrow and we get to the other side, and Hashem gives us a Yeshua, saves us. We have a tremendous. We automatically are in thankful mode. We thank Hashem at that point, right? And when we thank Hashem at that point, it brings us closer to Hashem, right? So this is on the simple level what happened in Chanukah, right? We were being taken over by the Greeks, by the Hellenists, and the Beis Hamikdash was lost. The temple was lost. Along came Matzyahu ben Yochanan Kohen Gadol and Chashmonai Ovanov, him and his children and the Chashmonayim, and they fought this holy war, the few against the many. And what happened in the end? We got the Beis Hamikdash back, and they reinstated the Kedushas Yisrael in the land of Eretz Yisrael, and it was really a Yeshua, and that is something to be tremendously thankful for. If you remember earlier in the Torah, we said this is called Ta'aluchas Hadamim Keseder, when the blood goes back to flowing the way it's supposed to go. Remember, the lady giving birth, she's in a tzara, and the blood is not flowing in its normal way. It's concentrating in the muscles that are required to push out that baby. So the legs become cold, the limbs become shaky. And when after the birth happens, then the blood begins to go back to its normal flow. Ta'aluchas Hadamim Keseder, which the Lashon Ta'alucha is the Lashon of halacha, right? That's called halachas, returning things going back to the way they are supposed to be. And that is an aspect of Chanukah, when things went back to the way they were supposed to be. That's the simple understanding. V'zehu bechinas hashemen shel ner Chanukah. It's also an aspect of the oil of the Chanukah licht, the Chanukah lights. V'chinas tumecha ve'urecha la'ish chasidecha. The pasuk says in Devarim, so if you translate this directly into English, it would say something to the effect of your purity, something like this. Let's see how he says it over here. Your perfections and your urim, your lights. So tumim comes from the lashon of tam, which means on the one hand simple. It also is connected to being complete, but it's also connected to tam, has a connotation of innocence, perfection, and truth. And urecha is from the shorish of the word or, which means light, right? Or. So tumecha ve'urecha leish chasidecha. Your truth and your light is to the man of Chesed. So the man of Chesed is referring to in this pasuk is referring to the Kohen Gadol, right? Which is the Chashmonayim who brought everything back. Also, they were Kohanim, yeah. And the Urim v'Tumim is the name of the choshen, the breastplate that the Kohen Gadol wore in the Beis Hamikdash, right? In the Mishkan in this case. But so what was it? It was a square breastplate that had on the back of it a flap that had the like they call it in English, the ineffable name of Hashem, right? And on the front it had 12 different stones corresponding to the 12 different gemstones and colors of the 12 tribes, the Yud Beis Bnei Yaakov. And so the Urim v'Tumim was a place of connection, really, of being able to speak to Hashem in a certain way. The Kohen Gadol was able to ask questions to Hashem, and it almost sounds like a joke, but it's not. And different letters would light up on the Urim v'Tumim that would give the answer that the Kohen Gadol was able to interpret as what the answer was. It was a type of prophecy. This is the Urim v'Tumim, right? And there's so much to say over here. The Urim v'Tumim, it's one. When you see the deeper explanations of this Torah, and we're talking about the Achdus HaPashat, the oneness, coming through into the multiplicity of this world, the main place where we see this is the 12 sons of Yaakov. They were 12 perfect tzaddikim, right? When Avram Avinu had Yitzchak, and then he had the Pesoilis. He had like the non-holy part of Yishmael. And then Yitzchak had Yaakov, and the Pesoilis, the not so great part of Esav. So they were weeding out certain energies that were not part of Kedushas Yisrael. But then when Yaakov had his children, he had what they call in this form a mita shlema. His offspring were perfection. 12 complete tzaddikim, all on the same page, all on the same das. They are the representation of having 12 tribes. You know the 12 tribes, they had 12 different nuschais of tefillah, 12 different versions of prayer. They had different symbols. They had different flags. They had different energies, different abilities. The most famous and obvious ones, of course, were Yisachar and Zvulun. That Zvulun was a seafarer and went and harvested techeles and did all kinds of business and made a ton of money. And Yisachar sat and learned Torah, and Zvulun had that relationship with him that he would fund their kollel, I guess. Right? And you see, they're all different. The tribes are all different. And Hashem wanted them to be different. In the Yam Suf, when it split, the 12 tribes walked down 12 separate paths. They each had their own pathway. In the Beis HaMikdash, there were 12 separate gates, one for each tribe to go through. Actually 13, but one was called the Shar HaKollel, where people who didn't have or didn't know the tribe could go through. What am I saying with all this? Yidden are supposed to be different. We're supposed to have a special koyach, a special ability, special talents. Every Jew is meant to be themselves, is meant to show and to use everything that Hashem gave them for holiness, for good things in the world, right? And the worst thing we can do sometimes is to try to think, I need to be more like that person, and start to pretend to be someone else, right? This is not what Hashem wants. Hashem wants us to be all individuals. However, and that's why the whole world is called Pu'ulas Mishtanes. Diverse phenomena, multiplicity. But what happens with the 12 sons of Yaakov is them with their different way of praying and their different abilities and their different living quarters and flags and everything. They all came together with one voice when their father was passing away and said, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Right? They said, listen, Shema Yisrael means listen, Yisrael, our father. Just like you believed that Hashem is one. We and you're one person. We, your 12 sons, collectively all agree and all believe together and are all on the same page that Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. He's our God also, Yisrael. Right? See, we think that statement is talking to us nowadays. Shema Yisrael. Hear, O Israel. Right? We think it's talking to us. But when they said it, really it was them talking to their father, Yisrael. Listen, Yisrael. Hashem is also our Elokeinu. He's also our God. We also believe Hashem Echad, right? So that is speaking to this inyan, that all of the multiplicity, all of the different things come together as one das. That's called the Pu'ulos Mishtanes, all the different phenomena coming together, ve'achdus hapashet, in the absolute oneness of Hashem, right? So the Urim V'Tumim is a physical representation of this, because it's one item that displays a direct connection to Hashem and displays on it the truth, emes, and it has written onto it the names of all the 12 tribes and a stone for each of the different tribes. It is taking all of Klal Yisrael and putting it into a oneness. That's what it does. So it's a beautiful representation of this Achdus HaPashat. So he says weiter. So to mecha v'rechel ish chasidecha, the Kohanim, especially the Kohen Gadol, is connected to the midah of chesed, the trait of kindness. So sha'al yedei hachasadim hanu b'chinas halacha. So if you remember at the very beginning of the Torah, we said through psukim in Tehillim that halacha and chesed are connected interchangeably, right? And it's through this concept of halacha that we've been talking about, which envelops gratitude, thankfulness, after a difficulty, and living with Hashem through halacha. Everything that I do, every moment of my life is connected to Hashem. That reveals the Or HaEmes, which, if you know, the school in our city over here is called Or HaEmet. It's a Sephardi school. It's the same lashon, Or HaEmes, the light of truth. Bechinas tumecha ve'urecha. Now this is what this word means. Tumecha ve'urecha. Urecha, or means light, and tam tumecha means truth, in the way we explained it. Tumecha v'orecha is or ha'emes. Ze b'chinas hashemen, shu b'chinas or ha'emes. And this is what the deeper meaning of the oil used on Chanukah. It's called the or ha'emes, the light of truth. How do we know? How do we see that truth and light are connected? Menachem brings another pasuk from Tehillim that says, "Shlach orcha ve'amitecha," send forth your light and your truth. So you see in this pasuk, light and truth are being connected one to the other. It's from Tehillim, and it puts together these two ideas. V'tzarich litnois samuch lePesach. So what do we have to do? So that's the whole concept of oneness, of thankfulness, of gratitude, and halacha, all revealing truth through Tumecha v'orecha, through the Or HaEmes, the light of Chanukah. So next we're going to say a halacha in Chanukah. Where are we supposed to put the menorah? Is our question. So if you live,
outside your front door,
right. So if you live in Chutz La'aretz, the general minig, at least by Ashkenazim mostly, is to put it either in the window or somewhere in your dining room, right? But really the halacha is, and this is the way they do it in Eretz Yisrael, is that it's supposed to be by your front door to your house, right? Samuch lePesach. So he says, "V'tzarich litnoi samuch lePesach." You have to put the menorah, the Chanukah licht, next to the doorway. Bechinas, which is connected to Pischei Picha, quotes a pasuk from Micha. Your mouth is really the doorway, which we've talked about many times, into your consciousness, right? Your thoughts and hashkafas come out through your mouth to the rest of the world, and it's also just, it's plain and simple. It's the doorway into your face, into your head, right? This is where this has to go. Hainu hadibur, pischei picha, the openings of your, which is the doorway to your mouth, to your head is your mouth. It's the place of speech. Ki ha'emes me'ir behadibur. Why? Because truth illuminates speech. So we just explained that the light of the menorah is the light of truth. It's the Or HaEmes. And it comes from all of these things that we said, all of the aspects of thankfulness and halacha and all these things that make it up. Tumecha v'orecha l'ishcha sidecha. And that you have to take. You have to take the revealed light of truth that comes through building this pathway and put it into your speech, he's saying. It gets revealed in your speech. That's why, on a deeper level, the Chanukah menorah, which represents truth, has to go at the opening, which is like your mouth, the opening of speech, to shine the truth into speech. Bechinas, Pesach devaracha ya'ir. Sorry, Pesach devaracha ya'ir. The opening of your words will illuminate. Right? The pasuk says in Tehillim. David HaMelech was hinting deeply to the fact that the illumination of the Chanukah candles have to go by your doorway. And by doing this, we now bring the simcha of Shabbos into the 6 days of the week. So this, like once again, I could explain this one paragraph for the whole hour that we're here, right? But we've been through this. We spoke about this a lot. But the main concept of Shabbos into the weekday is Olam Haba into this world, is consciousness of Hashem into the sadness of the weekdays, right? It's the aspect of being a ben Hamelech, being a son or a daughter of Hashem, as opposed to a slave of Hashem, right? It's drawing that existence into the weekdays. So the halachas of Chanukah, he's saying over here, of where we put our menorah, is a representation of these ideas, right? So when we take our menorah, we should remember this next Chanukah. When we take our menorah and we put it by the doorway, we should have in mind that I'm lighting this illumination of truth, and I want that to go to the opening which sends out to the world, which is my doorway here, and it's also the doorway to my head, which is my mouth. V'zeh b'chinas Chanukah. This is also another. Let's see how this is in another way. This is connected to Chanukah. So Chanukah is Chanu Chaf Hei. Chanu Chaf Hei. And I know what you're thinking. Everybody knows this one already. That it's they rested on the 25th. Chanukah begins on the 25th of Kislev, right? So Chanu, they rested. Chaf Hei on the 25th. That's the famous one. That's not what he's saying. He says, Bechinas Shabbos Neicha. Shabbos is a place of Neicha, which means menucha, which means peace and rest. Shabbos is the place of rest. Chanu, right? We're saying Chanukah means I'm tapping into Shabbos. I'm tapping into that place of the rest of Shabbos. Not the remaining part, the rest of Shabbos. The restful nature, the peaceful nature of Shabbos, which is an aspect of Olam Haba, which is an aspect of the oneness of Hashem. There aren't pulos mishtanes. There's not a lot of crazy things going on. It's all Hashem. That is the menucha, the peace of Shabbos. So Chanu, Chafei, Shaboy Mekusher B'Lashon HaKodesh, and we already said in the Torah that Shabbos is a time where our speech is at its height. It's at its state of perfection, and to the extent where it gets called Lashon HaKodesh, the holy tongue, right? And how did we explain? We brought a pasuk when we talked about Lashon HaKodesh way back then, that said, Rashi said, Koi Savar. The pasuk says when it's telling the Kohanim how to bless Klal Yisrael, it says, Koi Savarchu es Bnei Yisrael. That's what the pasuk says, right? We say it every day. Thusly shall you bless Klal Yisrael. And Rashi says, how do you bless Klal Yisrael? B'Lashon HaKodesh. Has to be Lashon HaKodesh. So on a deeper level, it means that this concept of ko savarchu, ko is Lashon HaKodesh. So the word chaf ko, is connected to Lashon HaKodesh. So Chanu is Shabbos, and chaf is Lashon HaKodesh. Chanukah is Shabbos and Lashon HaKodesh. V'asimcha shel Shabbos meir l'sheshes me'achol, and the simcha of Shabbos illuminates the 6 days of the week. Shem gam ken b'chinas Chanukah, b'chinas, and so the simcha of Shabbos now is going to light up the rest of the days of the week. And how do we see this? And he says this is also an aspect of Chanukah. How do we see? Because he says Chanukah b'chinas chanoch, metat, eved, sheshutanuse b'yamei hachol. Okay, so we talked about previously in this Torah the concept of the malach matat, the angel that's called matat, and his shultanuse b'yamei hachol. The malach matat ki'ilu, if we could say such a thing, Hashem gives him authority to manage the universe for the 6 days of the week. But then on Shabbos, it's just Hashem. Okay? Whatever that means. That's a deep concept. That's a whole series of classes just on that one concept. But where did the Malach Matat come from? So the Medrash tells us that there's a character, big tzaddik, in Bereshis called Chanoch. I think in English maybe he's Enosh. Maybe, I don't know. Enoch. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, Chanoch. And the pasuk says by Chanoch, he's right in the middle of a listing of all the generations. I think between Adam HaRishon and Avram Avinu. I think that's where it is. And by everyone it says this person was born, had so many children, lived for so many years, and died. Next person was born, had so many children, lived for so many years, and passed away. So on and so forth, through all the people, except one person. And that person is Chanukah. But by Chanukah it says he was born, he walked with God, halacha, walked with God, ve'enenu. That's what it says. And he was no longer. That's all it says. It doesn't say he died. First of all, it singles him out that he walked with Hashem, and then he was gone. What's pshat? So the Medrash explains that really he went straight up to Shemaim and became the Malach Matat. He became this Malach, this angel who is in charge of the entire universe for the 6 days of the week. This is Chanoch, right? So when we're talking about now, Rabbi Nachman is saying that when we get into this spiritual existence of Shabbos, and we build ourselves into this tremendous spiritual stature, when our das is connected to Hashem, we are people of hoidah, gratitude and thankfulness, and halacha, we're doing everything to connect to Hashem, and we're living in such a mindset where we see Hashem everywhere, and we're always thankful for Hashem, and nothing bothers us. Even in the middle of a tsar, we realize that Hashem's there, and we realize that there's a harchava, there's going to be something beneficial coming out of there. When we live in this state, right, then we can pull that into the 6 days of the week. 6 days of the week, which are run by Chanukah. Chanukah is the same words as Chanukah. Chanukah. It's the same words. V'chinas ze yenachamenu mimasenu u'mi'itzavon yadenu. If you remember, it was said about Noach, his name is also connected to the word Chanukah. This one will give us comfort from our work and from our sadness, from the work and sadness of our hands. You remember the whole inyan of the curse of the 6 days of the week, where we have to work and we have to live by the sweat of our brow and we have to face all of the confusion and difficulty of Putlas Mishtanis through the whole week. That was a curse. It wasn't supposed to be like that. That was the curse from the snake. Right? The Torah said, Be'itzavon teichalene. You know how you're going to make your parnasa, eat your bread? Sadness. You know how you're going to make your parnasa, eat your bread? Bezeas apecha. Through the sweat, through sweating and working hard. It wasn't supposed to be like that. But that's what happened because of the snake. And so Noach came along, and the pasuk says about him, Ze yenachamenu mimasenu mi'itzavon yadenu. This one will give us rest from our toil and the sadness and the difficulty of our work. Why? Because the Medrash says that Noach, he invented a certain kind of piece of equipment to make agriculture easier. So he made the work easier. That's what he did. But on a higher level, it's this concept of Chanukah. Noach is connected to the word Chanuch, Noach. It's all Shabbos and Chanukah and Olam Haba, right? And that aspect of Shabbos and Chanukah and Olam Haba will bring us a relief and a comfort from all the pain of this world. B'chinas Simcha Shel Shabbos, Shenimshach L'Shiz Merchol, which is drawn into the 6 days of the week. This is what we want to do, Kevra. We want to bring the holiness of the oneness of Shabbos. We always want to live that Hashem is one. And I see Hashem in everything in the world, in all aspects of my life. And I'm always thankful to Hashem for everything that I have. I'm always thankful to Hashem for everything that's going on. And even when I have difficulties, I'm thankful to Hashem because I know He's giving me something that's going to be good for me. Right? Like Gedalia Fenster always says, it's happening for me, not happening to me. Right? And through that, I'm able to see Hashem. That is drawing the oneness, the connectiveness of Shabbos into my life in general, into the 6 days of the week. So Rabbi Nachman says weiter. Now we're going to explain a pasuk from Parshas Miketz. Parshas Miketz is always read either right before Chanukah or during Chanukah. The pasuk says, "V'zeh vayehi Miketz shnasayim yomim." And it was at the end of 2 years of days. Shnasayim yomim. Miketz, hainu soif. So Miketz means it was at the end. So Ketz means soif. It means the end. Bechinas halachas, which is an aspect of halacha. How is soif an aspect of halacha? End. How is end or soif an aspect of halacha? This is a beautiful idea. We probably said it at the beginning of this Torah when we were learning the concept of halacha. But halacha means, how do I, with all of the Jewish knowledge that I have, how do I actually do it? How do I put it into practice? I can learn all kinds of different opinions. I could study the Gemara, and it's all, this one said this, that one said, it's all arguments and discussions and going from one place to another place. It's not clear, right? At some point, I have to do. I have to just do. How do I, and that's when I have to say, all of this learning, all of this discussion and everything has to end over, and I have to do, right? That's really what halacha is. Forget it. Someone has to say. It's interesting that when you have someone who is able to give decisions in halacha, they're called a posek. What's posek? Posek also means lafsik. It means to stop. It's someone who can say, it ends here, this is what you do. This is what you do. That's an aspect of halacha. It's also, in such a beautiful way, I was thinking about this earlier, it's also, my actions kind of represent the finality or the end point of my entire inner existence. Right? So it's the way that I express and then I actually put everything that's going on in my mind and in my midos, my character traits and everything, it has an endpoint when I now interact in the world. So whether it's the things that I do with my hands or my legs or whatever, or the way I talk, right? Halacha governs everything that I do. And it represents the endpoint of everything about me. Comes out in how I act. Right? So it doesn't matter, there's a saying. I'm not going to remember it. Someone hopefully will remember. There's a saying about, what's about good intentions?
The road to hell was paved with good intentions.
Oh, there you go. The road to Gehenna was paved with good intentions, says Rabbi Yaakov over here, right? Meaning what? Intentions are important, and there actually are there's certain places where intentions really mean a lot. But at the end of the day, if you hurt somebody, it doesn't matter what your intentions were. In the end of the day, you hurt them, right? If you didn't help somebody who you could have helped, it doesn't matter what your intentions were. You didn't do it, right? You wanted to spend a day praying and davening and learning and doing all this amazing stuff, and right? Okay, you didn't do it though, right? In the end, so what am I saying? I'm not trying to come down on anybody who's not doing, maybe a little bit, but I'm coming down a little bit. I'm just saying that you see how it's an end point. Halacha, the way I act, the way I do things is an end. So, and this aspect of halacha is also connected to Olam Haba. And Olam Haba is the soif. Olam Haba is the destination. It's not the journey anymore. It's the place. It's when you've arrived. That's the aspect of Olam Haba. And that's what we're drawing into this world when we're living in the way that Rabbi Nachman is telling us over here. Right? I'm not going through a journey that's painful and difficult. I'm already here today. So thank you, Hashem. If I'm thanking Hashem, it means I've already arrived at where I want to be, where I should be. Hashem's taking care of me. It's the end. It's not a journey. It is a journey. But in this aspect, it's not a journey. It's a destination. I'm already here, right? By the way, I should say that Reb Nosson said at one point that, he wasn't saying that Rabbi Nachman was Mashiach, right? But he said at one point, he said, for me, Mashiach has already come. I've already arrived. He spoke face to face with Rabbi Nachman. He was his closest student. To him, he didn't need anything else ever. Right? He lived totally present and totally with emunah and happiness in this sense, despite tremendous difficulty. So Olam Haba, it's the end. It's the place of having arrived already. Shnasayim Yamim. So Vayehi Miketz, at the end of Shnasayim Yamim, 2 years of days. Kamayma Rabbi Chazal say, okay, so we're going to tell a story now. Rabbi Nachman's going to tell a story. And the story was told, this whole section of the Torah is explained in Likutei Moharan, that he gave over this section of the Torah specifically because a certain person was supposed to come and be with him on Shabbos, when he gave over this Torah, Shabbos Chanukah, but that person got delayed in another town and couldn't make it till Sunday to be with Rabbi Nachman. And the person was very depressed and very sad that he wasn't able to be with Rabbi Nachman over that Shabbos. He was mamish, like downcast. Is that the right word? Downcast? No. Crestfallen. Downtrodden. He was crestfallen. He was very upset. And so Rabbi Nachman told this section of the Torah to him on Sunday afterwards. That's what this part is. And it's a story that goes like this. Chazal tell this story in the Gemara in Chagiga. Al-Hai bar beirav dechad yoima. So there was a yeshiva student who came to the yeshiva of Rav for 1 day a year, Shahaya Mitzvah, and he was sad. So what did he do? He lived so far away, and he had to work to feed his family. And so in the off season, he worked for 6 months, and then he walked from his place to the yeshiva of Rav. It took him 3 months to get there, and he learned in the yeshiva for 1 day, and then he walked 3 months back to his house. Right, and he was very upset He was mitzvah, right? Because this is what they called him. He walked in and they called him, here's the 1 day a year yeshiva student, right? And the guys were making fun of him. And he was very upset. Ad shedorash lei Rabbi Yochanan, until Rabbi Yochanan made a drasha for him that said, Va'oisi yom yidroishun. And the pasuk says that you and me, day yom. So the simple reading of this pasuk is day in and day out, they search for me. They search for me, right? So he explained that here it says yom, and that means like 2 days, and like shnasayim yomim, a year of days. So Rabbi Yochanan told him that 1 day sheyom echad b'shana chashuv kashana. That 1 day in a year is considered like the whole year. Telling him that, you know what? Your 1 day that you come to the yeshiva is considered as if you were here the whole year. So precious is it that you travel for 3 months to get to learn 1 day and go travel for another 3 months. It's so precious that it counts as the whole year for you. So Rabbi Nachman said this to this guy who came and was too late and missed out his learning and felt so bad. He said, no. Your efforts to come and the fact that you made it here now is worth even more. Happens to be that this pasuk is said in a sarcastic way when it's brought in Nach over here. That it's talking about people who are quote unquote searching for me day in and day out, right? So meaning that they are insincere in what they're doing, right? So this pasuk he was bringing, really he was talking about those guys who are there in that yeshiva every day, and this is the way they treat this person. They're not really holding where they should be holding. They're not the people of emes. They're not sincere, right? This is how Rabbi Yochanan made him feel comfortable. Shnasayim yomim b'chinas hayomim shenechshavim lashanim ayidei limud halachos. He's telling us over here that you can have a day that is like a year. A day can be as powerful as a year. How? Through limud halachos, through learning halachos. B'chinas yom yidroshin. This that a person searches for me through halacha for a whole year can have such a powerful day, that day is considered like a year. So in other words, we had this in another Torah. But if a person, okay, I'll say it like this. This is the greatest example. We can really identify with this nowadays. Has anyone here ever had a day go by where at the end of the day they did not do anything? And they spent the whole day sitting somewhere, maybe not getting motivated, maybe scrolling through their phone, and just like losing the whole day, right? You get to the end of a day, and what did you do that day? Nothing. The day was useless. The day was totally useless. It's like that day had no value to it, right? So how do you consider that day? It seems very small and very useless, very valueless, right? Mashenke, if you're a person who lives in the mindset, in the consciousness that we're talking about in this Torah, a person who is always looking for Hashem, always thanking Hashem for everything they have in their life, past, present, and hopefully future, is connecting to Hashem all the time, is living a life of halacha where everything that they do, every aspect of their lives is always connected to Hashem, and every day they're accomplishing. They're doing things, amazing things every day, Like, it's such a valuable, it's such a big day. It's a huge day compared to that other useless, valueless day, right? I know my wife today, she made and delivered meals for 3 different families today. She doesn't do that all the time. But what a day! What a day of accomplishment, of doing chesed for 3 whole families. Very, very special. That's a day. That's something that goes down in the books as a valuable, important, amazing day. That day has length, it has breadth. It's like a whole year compared to that other day where the whole thing is lost. Right? This is one aspect of how halacha, chesed, haidah, thankfulness, all of these things can turn one day into like a whole year. Okay, what time is it here? Okay, we're almost done here. Let's see what happens. You know what? What time is it? Let's hold it here. We're not going to finish today, so let's leave ourselves enough time to properly deal. We have only like 2 more pages left, okay, and we're going to finish this Torah. So let's take this home with us today. Let's remember this aspect that all of these things together put us into a completely different existence. Put us into an existence that is so precious and so valuable and so connective and so positive. It's a wholly different existence. It's the aspect of Chanukah. It's the aspect of drawing the Chanu, the peace and the oneness of Shabbos in through Lashon HaKodesh, the Chafei, Chanukah, the Kos of Archos B'nai Israel, drawing that all into our existence in this world. And it's an aspect of Chanukah, of pulling that Shabbos into the weekdays where Chanukah, the Malach Matat, is the ruler. It's an aspect of always drawing that oneness into the Pu'los Mishtanos, into the rest of the world. And we have to remember that Chanukah is totally connected to the number 8. And the number 8 is the Sphira of Bina. And the Sphira of Bina is the Sphira of Olam Haba. Chanukah is drawing Bina, 8, Olam Haba into this world. And that's what the light of Chanukah does. It brings the truth, the emes, the illumination of Olam Haba into this world. Through what? Through Haidah. So you want just this last thing. This is so awesome. Reb Nosson brings this down in the Likutei Moharan over here. The 8th Sphira is Bina, from the bottom up. Right? And Bina is the Sphira of Olam Haba. That's why Chanukah is connected to Olam Haba. But what's the 8th Sphira from the top down? Is Keser, Chochma, Bina, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod. Hod is Haidah. Chanukah is 8. From the bottom up, counting the Sphirus, 8 is Bina, which is Olam Haba. And we say in Chanukah, B'nei Bina Yemei Shmona. Right? And if you go from the top down, right, what's the 8th Sphira? The 8th day of Chanukah is Hod, Haidah. And Chanukah, as we know, is Yemei Haidah, the Gemara says. You see, in the number 8, it's encoded within Chanukah that either way you go, you get Haidah and Olam Haba, which is what Rabbi Nachman really bases this whole entire Torah on. So Mitzvah Hashem, let's be people who draw Olam Haba, Shabbos, oneness, Haidah, gratitude, thankfulness, halacha, Hashem consciousness into our everyday lives. And we don't live existences of scrolling and useless days which amount to nothing. God willing. Okay, we'll end there. We have a little bit of time. Any comments?